They want to be cute. They want to put special names to their process and this, that, the other thing. And they want to show how creative they are. But sometimes it's at the detriment of like just being clear, right? And if you confuse the client, you can lose the client. Stop effing confusing them and just be clear with whatever it is you're trying to say. And not have this fluffy message that, you know, you thought of while you were microdosing and now nobody else understands.
Hey, I'm John Bertino, co-founder of The Agency Guide. Today we're on the Penji podcast, and make sure you check it out. We're going to talk all about how you hire the right agency for the right marketing services at the right budget and make it efficient. Penji's awesome. Check it out.
Hey guys, thank you so much for coming in and being with me today.
Thanks for having us, Shannon. Excited to be here.
Great having you guys. So, can you guys tell us a little bit about the Agency Guide and what you guys do there?
Sure. So the Agency Guide is 10 and a half, almost 11 years old now. So it started in 2014. Steven and I had a similar vision at the time that it was surprisingly and unnecessarily difficult to find the right marketing agency, suitable marketing support to help you on things. Like it's a very crowded space. It's very saturated. And yet marketers, even if they're not great marketers, can be pretty crafty at looking good. And it can be really hard to separate the wheat from the chaff, to find an agency that not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. Not only an agency that walks the walk, but does so in a way that they offer good customer service and communication throughout the process. Because some agencies or marketers are talented, but they're just terrible to work with still. And not only that, but to get objective, unbiased feedback and consulting along the way. And that's actually a really important point, right? Because I often say that if you're not sure how you want to market yourself, but you contact an SEO agency, 9 times out of 10, they want to solve 80% of your problems with SEO. Conversely, you're not sure how to market yourself or what to do next, you contact a branding agency, oftentimes they want to solve all your problems with branding. And that's just not the right way to look at things. It's not objective and it's unfortunately biased, but they can't help themselves. And even so, especially if you get delegated to an employee that's not the ownership group, they're even more likely to just say, we have what you need. And so there's so many little things about the standard process of sourcing an agency that's just broken, and we wanted to fix it. And so I had just gotten to know Steven at the time, but we were sharing a similar vision, and we were like, hey, how about we try to solve that problem? And that's how TAG started.
So something that I was wondering is, how do you guys vet these agencies? What's the process that you go through for finding a good agency? And how do you ensure this trust between you and then also the client of that agency?
Yeah, I'll tackle the macro, and then Steve, maybe you can talk a little bit about like from the branding, web and creative point of view.
Sure. But
just agencies in general, the first thing I'll say is that there's not necessarily like this easy secret sauce to identifying the right agency. It starts with your standard checkpoints that anybody's going to go through, right? Like just sizing up their site, and of course having conversations and, looking at references and testimonials and what they've worked in, all that stuff that anybody would do. I think once you've done that, the next layer is digging a little bit deeper. So since my background's heavy in search, I'm often looking at things like what backlinks point to the site, what is their domain authority. Even if I'm not talking to an SEO agency, even if I'm talking to a PR agency or a social media agency, I'm curious who's linking to them, who's talking about them. Again, I do that through assessing their backlink portfolio. What's their domain authority? What's their site traffic look at? So I guess I use SEO tools to get that next level of legitimacy from the agency. But honestly, the real thing is just having been in marketing for almost 2 decades now. When I talk to a marketer, I can usually pretty quickly surmise how strong they are in the different facets of marketing, how if they've been around the block or not, and how good they are at their craft. What do you usually?
No, and I think another important part, obviously understanding their skill set, their capabilities, their size of team, do they understand their ideal client? Do they know who they really want to work with? Or are they just saying yes to everything, which is a red flag, right? We don't necessarily represent the generalists, we're really representing the specialists. But I think another important part is the people skills, the humanity behind them. Like, are they a good person that you want to break bread with? You know, do they suck at sale? And this is something that, unfortunately, you could be a great agency, but you talk yourself out of the sale. We see it constantly. Maybe they don't know how to just keep their mouth shut and let the client talk, right? And they want to, peacock and show how smart they are or how great they are. And unfortunately, that's not what a client necessarily wants. They want to be able to have a conversation, be collaborative with someone. And that's really important. And I think so, like, as we are vetting out these agencies, yes, of course, we're looking at everything that John said, but we're also like making sure that, like, are you a decent human being or are you a sociopath? And if you're the latter, we're not going to want to represent you, because it's ultimately we get paid upon a successful placement. And if you're going to sabotage the deal because you don't have good people skills, I don't want to send you that deal, because we need to be profitable and we need to make money. And also our reputation as experts in the field, as thought leaders, as whatever, insert title here, is predicated on making sure that we uphold those standards.
Those are excellent points. You can learn a lot about the fabric of a human being by how they handle trying to win business or not trying to win business, right? Like, how do they approach money and how do they approach financial conversations? So yeah, we want agencies that want to win, but do they push too hard? Do they start fudging? Do they start making promises they can't keep? Are they evasive on things versus being transparent? When you know the right questions to ask, a lot of these things bubble up to the surface pretty quick, because we don't just want to see agencies win deals. We want to see them keep deals. And you can't hide for very long, right? You're either good or you're not, and it's going to come out relatively quickly.
Did you see that problem even with people that I've interviewed before about them saying that a lot of people try to force a sale, and you should never try to force a sale because that probably won't work out at the end anyway? And I think that makes sense, that's a good sign of someone that knows what they're doing when they're looking for a client.
It goes back to what you had said earlier about this idea of trust, right? Like, the more the agency and or us as an entity can push out reliable content, be the voice of objectivity, and be consistent over time, we're going to build massive trust with the clients. And that's why they keep coming back to us, and with the agency partners as well. So we can't undermine, like, we're all trying to build trust every single day with what we do.
Ownership. We will never represent an agency without speaking directly to that owner. And there's been times that it's been suggested that we just agree to represent them, just talking to someone that's mid-level or what have you. But you really need to get a feel for ownership. And I always recommend to brands that they Google the owner of an agency to get a feel for what they look like on camera and how they communicate, or try to get that meeting with them before they hire them. You can learn so much about the culture of an organization by getting a feel for the owner.
Person that you're talking to could be really nice, but they're trained to be that way. And you can meet the owner and be like, this guy sucks.
It can happen. Or gal, for that matter.
You guys seem great though. But so I noticed on your page that you guys work with a lot of niche agencies. You're very specific, like food and beverage and for nonprofit marketing. How do you take on these partnerships and ensure them clients?
We don't. And it's actually a really key point is the last thing we want is to be in a situation where we're guaranteeing an agency X amount of business because they're our partner. No, quite to the contrary. We don't charge, as of today, July 2024, we're not charging the agencies anything to be part of our partner network, because if we did, that creates a situation where we owe them. And we don't want to be indebted to any one agency and feel obligated to be introducing them to opportunities. No, again, the opposite of that. We want to be introducing them to opportunities based on merit, credentials, experience, all of the things that really matter, not because we feel financially incentivized to send them something.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because there's competitors in our space that are doing the opposite, where they are charging the agencies to be part of their preferred list, or they get first right to refusal on a deal. And again, it creates almost lack of transparency in a way. And that's not, at this stage of our careers, that's not something that we're interested in as of right now. I think it's like John said, merit. It's based on how well you are, how easy you are to work with, how seamless is it. All of those soft skills, I suppose you could say, are so important.
We do have what I would frame as a positive bias towards niche specialists. Now, not always. If a food and beverage brand or food and beverage product comes to me and they're looking for an agency, we're not exclusively going to consider agencies that just know that space, but we are prone to look at them first. There is a certain amount of learning curve. It depends on the industry, but generally speaking, there is a certain amount of learning curve, niche by niche, industry by industry. There is a certain learning curve associated with each industry, and one way to help keep costs down is to align with an agency that doesn't need to learn on the fly. It really does have a certain cost associated with it to bring an agency that's never been in a niche into it, because they need to do those learnings to figure it out. Having said that, just to give the other side of the equation, sometimes it's advantageous to get a new perspective, to get a fresh look on things. There are definitely teams that get sometimes so entrenched in the space that they're
blinders.
Yeah, right. How's the expression go? You can't see the label when you're inside the jar type thing. That can happen too.
And I think it's so subjective on the client needs and what they're looking for, right? Like if they're just looking for, I need bottom funnel assets that just going to put people through our funnel and close deals, that perhaps someone who's really deep entrenched in that industry is correct. But if you have a brand that's like, listen, we want to widen our net, we want to expand our client base, we need some outside the box thinking, then oftentimes it's like, well, let's bring in a team that can provide that level of thinking. Maybe they don't have as deep industry expertise, but you can learn that industry expertise, that outside the box thinking is what the agent or is what the client is actually looking for. That is what the challenge that the agency is faced with.
So it's the old, it depends, but very true in what it is we do.
So going off of that, when an agency is kind of closed-minded in the way that they work, where they kind of believe in something that they do, which is good, but they don't listen to the client as much when they're looking for something, how do you, have you ever been in a case where you've given them advice or pushed them to be more open-minded, or what do you think that these kind of agencies can learn the most from the client?
At the short answer I'll give is that I don't go out of my way to get the agencies to think or act or work in a way that they're not accustomed to, because then you're kind of trying to square peg round hole it. In fact, kind of to the contrary, this comes into the true matchmaking component to what we do, because we're not only matchmaking brands on scope of work and industry and size and budget, also personality, which gets to the heart of your question. If I know that Joe is just going to be really difficult or not philosophically aligned with Susie, then I'm not going to bring Susie to Joe. I'm going to try to bring Susie to someone that's going to, again, see things philosophically the way she does. But, you still want that healthy push-pull. You don't want a yes man, yes woman that's just an order taker. So you're looking for that delicate balance.
And to the second part of your question, and maybe I do this more than you do, John, I have given pointers from a sales perspective. If I'm on a call introducing an agency to a client and the agency is just not understanding the question or they're just steamrolling through them, I have absolutely in the past been like, hey, homie, or hey, bro, or whomever, hey, Jane.
It was Susie.
It was Susie. Susie, maybe next time, let the client talk a little more, or just back up. Don't shove your process down their throat. because you're losing them. Your process is complicated. So like, I think there are pointers that we inadvertently, because of our experience, again, 2 decades in marketing and with the agency, in the agency world, that we're inadvertently just giving out, because ultimately we want everyone to win. Right? How can we have the best chances of winning? And so if I can impart some knowledge or just some advice to help them close, of course they're going to hopefully take that advice. They want to win the business, and we want them to win the business.
Yeah, it's another excellent point. Sometimes we know the agency and the client or brand are a great fit, but man, some agencies will do everything they can to get in their own way. There's a certain level of agency consulting that goes with what we do, and I think actually doing agency consulting is probably in our not too distant futures.
The irony, right? Like oftentimes, I come from the branding world. Branding is my obsession. I find that branding agencies overbrand themselves almost all the time. They want to be cute. They want to put special names to their process and this, that, the other thing. And they want to show how creative they are. But sometimes it's at the detriment of like just being clear, right? And if you confuse the client, you can lose the client. Stop effing confusing them and just be clear with whatever it is you're trying to say, and not have this fluffy message that, you know, you thought of while you were microdosing and now nobody else understands.
Microdosing in marketing.
That's a great podcast title right there.
There it is.
So what is you're playing matchmaker, right? And you have an unhappy client. What do you do?
Never happened. Never had an unhappy client in my life.
100% success rate for the last 11 years.
We do have above average success rate, and I would say it probably happens to us less than in your typical situation. After all, that's the idea of what we do. But in a situation where a client feels as though it's just not working out, sometimes they come back to us and say, hey, you know, we really appreciate your process and your perspective the first time around. It just doesn't seem to be working out. Where else can we go?
That's ideal.
Yeah, that would be the ideal scenario. In a scenario where they just feel like it wasn't a fit, then usually they move on. And we'll see if there's anything else we can do to help or accommodate. And we're always trying to do discovery after the fact to figure out where things may have gone wrong. Because, you know, it brings up an interesting point, which is agency personalities and the way they work is a moving target. It changes over time. They're not living, breathing things, but the entity does grow, change, and evolve. And there's a certain amount of keeping your finger on the pulse of that goes with helping to make better matches with them in the future.
So I noticed that on your consulting team, you mentioned university professors and international speakers. I was wondering where you got this collection of professionals and why you think they're a great fit for consulting. Because I thought it was very unique that I don't see a lot.
Yep.
I mean, John and I met randomly at a bar crawl in San Diego many, many years ago.
Shout out San Diego.
That I was putting on. And I think that, and I don't want to speak for John being the founder and CEO, but like I think part of the unique chemistry is finding individuals that have a contrarian way of thinking about marketing, and perhaps a contrarian way of thinking about how agencies should operate, and and part of the education factor. And I think, as you read that off, the university and the international, that's John and I, and I think it's more of just trying to, listen, if we can do our part and influence the next generation to understand smart marketing and not be so clickbaity and not be so spammy and not do things unethical, I think that that partly is our our ticket to the afterlife, I suppose you could say, right? It's us doing good, but it's also thought leadership, right? Like I think the more thought leadership that we could put out there, the more trust we could build with our audience. The more trust we could build with our audience, the more leads that are going to come to us, the more agency partners we're going to bring together, and the more matchmaking we can do. So I think part of our flywheel approach is, well, do more speaking gigs, do more public-facing things that position us as the expert, because it's going to continue to build our pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, we're not just agency matchmakers, we're marketing consultants. And so an important part of being a good marketing consultant is staying in the trenches to a degree, and practicing what you preach. And so to Steven's point, thought leadership and social proof and building trust are so just central and fundamental to marketing in general that we have to do not only our fair share of it, but arguably more than the typical business or brand, because we're selling marketing for a living. So it keeps us fresh. It helps us build our own awareness and trust, and just, being a thought leader is really par for the course in marketing. So we do our best to keep up with it.
Good. Douglas, so speaking of keeping up with it, what if you're introduced with a client that you don't think you have an agency for? Do you look for one that is not in your org at that moment, or you kind of just say, sorry, we don't think we have a good fit for you?
Sure. So we represent about 300 different marketing teams at this point, and teams can be very large agencies, very small and boutique agencies, even a few solopreneurs and consultants, and even a few marketing tech providers and platforms. So even though 300 is quite a few, I always say when you've been doing this for over 10 years, it's kind of a small, vetted, carefully selected roster of partners. So that roster allows us to much more often than not, have not only one good option, but usually a few good options to introduce to the brands and opportunities that come across our desk. But in those somewhat rare circumstances where we don't have the ideal fit, the first thing we do is communicate that transparently. So I think rather than scrambling to, again, square peg round hole it, or go just find an agency off the street that we think could be a fit, the first thing we do is communicate that back. Hey, look, we've got XYZ that you might want to speak with. I don't know if they're a slam dunk, but they're a good option. And then in addition to that, we know of a few leads that could be a good fit, but we've yet to work with them. We've yet to vet them. So essentially, if we don't know for sure that we have an optimal fit, we communicate that and then explore a few, plan B and plan C scenarios to present them with options, but always let them know whether or not they're part of the existing tag network.
So I think transparency is something that's super important in any of these, like especially related to if you're doing a service for someone else, it's always important to have transparency. So I have a specific question for you. Okay, so you're a brand strategist, but you're working with brand agencies. So how does your job kind of work on the day to day? I was curious about it. Does that make sense?
So the number one thing you need to understand about brand strategy is that it is a long-term plan to outmaneuver your competition through radical differentiation. So brands often come to us and I hear things like, Steven, we need a new logo. We need a new website. Our message isn't resonating with our core customer. So me putting my brand strategy hat on and, we start to unpack the layers on, well, what's really the issue here? You need a new logo. Let's unpack that, because the logo is not branded. The last thing that we do in the branding process, we got to understand, where are you going? Where's your mission and vision? Are you aligned with your positioning statement? Do you know who your ideal customers are? Do you understand the reasons to believe or why customers should trust you as a brand? And so along the way, I'm imparting that knowledge and part education. I think it's why I love teaching, right? Because the brand strategy, oftentimes is teaching the owner, founder, the entrepreneur, the C-suite about their brand and about why it's so important, not just from a marketing perspective. I'm not one to make promises or guarantees, but my guarantee is if you do proper branding, you could potentially spend less money on marketing. Not that you should, right? I'm not saying that at all, but you could, right? Because you're not taking just an educated guess. You're not just throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks. You're being more thoughtful. You're being more purposeful with your marketing endeavors. But when you do branding really well, it's not just impacting your marketing, it's impacting your investor relations, it's impacting your employee relations, how much your retention on employee is, how you attract talent. Like, it impacts so many facets of your organization. And I think that oftentimes brands don't understand that. They don't know what they don't know, right? They just think, oh, it's my logos, my colors, and my font. Yes, it absolutely is, but there's so much more that goes into it in order to make sure that, you know, the branding engagement goes right. So along the way, I'm educating the brand, but while educating the brand and understanding what their absolute needs are, because I've been at this for so long, I can very succinctly help to create a scope that I can now send to a branding agency that makes sense. Based on they're saying A and B, but this is actually what they need. This is what needs to be in the scope, or these are the hot items you need to speak about in your own way, the own je ne sais quoi way of that brand, of that agency. And oftentimes that's when that successful match make happens.
Makes a lot of sense. So speaking of teaching, we already mentioned what agencies can learn from their clients, but what do you guys think you can learn from your clients?
Oh, there's so much that we can learn from them, right? Business is such an enigma, I think, and every business is put together differently. Every business has different goals, and every business leverages marketing in a different way, right? And there's no one size fits all in what we do. There's no one size fits all in branding or in marketing or in content marketing. And so I think that, you know, what I learn from brands all day is, number one, when you work with so many different industries and so many different brands, you become almost like little micro subject matter experts in all these different random things. Like, I'm sure if I asked John about, you know, safety supply products right now, he could rattle off stuff that'll blow your mind. So random, right? So he, right?
Oh yeah, I got my hard hat on right now.
Exactly. And so, but I think the biggest lesson here is like to have that learner's mindset. Like, we're never going to know everything there is to know about everything. And I think the moment you start thinking about that, your ego becomes the enemy, and that's your downfall. So at least for myself, it's like have that open mind, learner's mentality. Listen, I know what I know and I'm good at what I do, but I'm not the absolute guru, expert, a savant that is out there.
It's fun. I was going to take it in a similar direction. We learned so much from both sides of the equation, actually. So on the brand side, I was going to say that part of the fun and rewarding thing about what we do is every day it's a different type of project across the desk. Not only a different industry, which keeps it fun and exciting, but a different size opportunity to, you know, size both in terms of budget, but also size in terms of like the type of organization you're working with. It could be a individual solopreneur to a nonprofit to an enterprise opportunity and everything in between. But on the agency side, I mean, that's part of what keeps us so fresh is we are on discovery after discovery after pitch call for, again, all facets of marketing. And so it's really exciting and really intriguing to hear from the best of the best on PR strategy. Then the next day, hear from the best of the best on brand strategy, and then the best of the best on digital media buying or search marketing. So we're learning every day.
That's an incredibly wholesome note to end on. Okay, what is the first word that you think of when you think of silly?
Greasing a pole. Couple words, sorry.
You get a new funny one every time. Okay.
Oh, well, I need to recover from that.
So fast and over. Okay. Celebrity.
I'm still laughing from the last one. So you go first.
Celebrity. When I think of Philadelphia, I think of John Kruk. First thing that came to my mind.
Wow. I mean, Stallone.
How did I miss that one?
Yeah.
Okay. The original steak spot. This one has a lot of contestants.
Yeah. I want to give two. I know I'm breaking the rules there. But first, I want to shout out the new joint in Haddonfield, which is where our new content studio is. It's Gould's Burgers.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a tricky name. I mean, this is a remarkable South Jersey cheesesteak. In fact, both of mine are in South Jersey. What do you think about that? And the other one, though, the other one is Brico. So Brico is a growing, they only have 2 locations that I know of. They have incredible pizza, but they probably have coal-fired pizza, probably the best cheesesteak I've ever had in my life. Shout out South Jersey.
I'm actually going to be the complete opposite and say the cheesesteak is overrated. You got to go for the roast pork. I'm going to next.
Oh, didn't answer that question.
He's a dodgy fellow. He's a dodgy.
I'm not from here originally, so I'm struggling with these questions.
All right. Well, review of the food is actually more. This is a lesson.
We were just talking about that.
Favorite small business in Philly. This might be difficult if you guys are in here.
Oh.
Maybe something that you frequent the most.
Yeah. My newest favorite small business in Philly is Milk Crate. It's a killer coffee shop up in the Northern Liberties, Fishtown area. Super cool. Bunch of old records, hipsters on laptops. It's my kind of thing.
I will go with it's a restaurant actually not too far from here, Le Grand Cafe L'Aquila. That place is dynamite and authentic Italian, and they're off the boat and they speak Italian in there, and that place is really solid.
One time I went there and a guy forgot our order several times.
That sounds about.
So that's you can ask for when someone messes up your order. All right. What is your favorite place to eat or drink? It could be also the same thing.
Well, I'm gonna go with a place that left a really incredible impression on me just recently, and that was Soraya. Soraya is out of this world, and love it.
I enjoy variety, and so I'm gonna go with the Reading Terminal.
Yeah.
They have anything that you need in there and all that cool stuff. Yeah, I like the vibe.
Yeah. Clearly, you want a roast pork sandwich.
The man of the people, that's where the people are. So yeah.
Really good cheesesteak there.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. You said I broke the rules by bringing up Jersey. Fernando sauce.
Awesome.
And then your favorite neighborhood in Philly.
I mean, I'm a coffee shop dork, as already illustrated by the prior question. So for me, it's all about that Northern Liberties, Fishtown vibe.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the same. That area, it's got the right vibe. So
That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for being such Philly professionals.
Excellent.
Thank you guys so much for being with me today, and I really appreciate all the knowledge that we got from you, and it's really great to hear how much you guys are willing to learn, because I think that's one of the most important thing about any business at agency. So thank you so much.
thanks for having us.
Excellent.